I went through that whole thing and didn't have the microphone on. That's what happens when we start things at 12:20 in the morning, at 10:30 for this show. I was just ranting. You guys missed me ranting about the stupid early goddamn start time. I'm assuming you can hear me now. Literally just forgot to press the button and turn on the microphone. That's what happens with these start times. I was saying that these are the mornings that make me realize that I would be a bad dictator, bad pirate king, because I'm just in full blown like bring me the head of the person that scheduled this slate mode. I want that person's head on my desk by sunset. I'm just not in a good mood about this slate today. Trey, no worries, buddy. I always happy to provide some content. Didn't get the opportunity to write the full article today. I figured we would do a show and it would be just a better use of the time rather than sitting there and trying to slog my way through the article early in the morning. But getting the home run picks, got the home run models up there, the stacks, the power index. So everything's up there except for the full breakdown article. Yeah, Trey, I'm totally with you, man. There's no need for early slates here in the week. I was saying, I think right at the end there, I was saying, baseball starts at 1:05, 1:30, 12:20, just way too early. This is just a silly, silly slate. So I expect we'll be fairly lightly attended, but it looks like we've got a good crowd already coming in. Solid Picks is in there. We got Lair, Lone Wolf, Trey's in the chat, Podj and Stoner, asking when the edibles kicked in. I went with the red shirt today to enhance the red in my eyes. Bring out the red in the eyes. I slept with the contact lenses in last night. Everything's a little blurry. That's okay. Had some beers, hung out. Also, stuffy nose this morning. It's a great day to be alive. This is one for you guys. They say the one for us, one for them kind of thing. This is a one for them. This one's for you guys that were here. I haven't gone through the slate with a fine-tooth comb like I normally do, right? Like normally I write the article that takes me through all the pitching and I get to take a good look at everybody. So we're going to go a little bit, let's call it Gundacker style, where we're going to do some analysis live on the air. We'll take a look at everything we've got here. And we'll see what happens. Shannon Lambert, yes, Silsith with 10Ks. Yep, we talked about that being a potential spot because of how bad the Yankees suck, and that is exactly what happened. So that was not a good one. Strange slate last night, obviously with all that action that we had the day before with the crazy scoring, and then last night with some weird pitching results. It's been a couple weird ones. But this one, it seems fairly straightforward. Larry's saying the pitching today is wild. I totally agree. There's a lot of good pitching on the board today, including starting off in the first game here. So why don't we dive on in? Going to try and knock this out, relatively quickly. We don't have to breeze through everything, but we don't have to spend the entire morning on it either. So let's get into this one. And Diamondbacks and the Braves. Great pitching matchup to start the slate off. Zach Gallen going for the Diamondbacks, Spencer Strider for the Braves. Obviously, Strider, best pitcher in baseball. We've talked about him. I just rave about him every time he's on the mound. He's had his ups and downs this year. A little bit more power allowed this year. 3.10% home run rate, 8.9% barrels this year. Those were a little bit lower last year, but we're talking about a guy with a 38.9% strikeout rate and 19.7% swinging, 34.5% CSW. He's elite. He's filthy. He's nigh unhittable some days. 10, 12 strikeouts is always in play. It's just totally worth going to him whenever he's on the board. That said, you're spending a ton of salary to get there. 12, 6, 11, 4. He's the priciest starter on the slate, too. Going up against a team in the Diamondbacks that definitely knows how to put runs on the board. They got to Charlie Morton last night. They got to Bryce Elder in a big, big way the night before. They're very good at limiting strikeouts. They're very good at creating runs. So not the greatest matchup in the world, but Strider is, matchup proof is probably not the right way to put it, but essentially, he's playable against anybody. So enthusiasm about Spencer Strider. He projects out top of the board naturally. I think he's been the top of the board every single time he's pitched all year long. Totally makes sense in my mind. And then Zach Gallen on the other side, lending a little bit of power upside to the Braves here. Kind of based more off the contact profile than the home runs allowed this year. Contact profile, 8.3% barrels, 42.7% hard hits, 90 plus on the exit velo. That leads to a little bit in the power index, but it's the Braves. So, I mean, most of these guys are going to be in this territory basically regardless of who they're facing, just with all their home run upside. It looks like the everyday version of the lineup, except Travis d'Arnaud in for Sean Murphy. Day game after a night game makes total sense. We'll see that with a lot of the backup catchers today. We had a few situations like I think Cal Raleigh sat last night, and he'll play today. So teams always manage the catcher position a little bit for day games after night games to not break guys down. Darno, though, is probably the best backup catcher in the league when it comes to being at the plate, when it comes to being on for DFS purposes. 4,600, 3,000. He's got 8 home runs this year. He hit like 18, I think, last year in 400 something plate appearances. So Darno is just a slot him right in wherever you would have played Murph. Just it's taking a discount. He's not the same bat. You're getting him at a discount though, so you're not paying the same price as you would for Murph. And there's tons and tons of upside with Darno. The lineup from top to bottom, we talk about it every time this team's on the slate. But this team plays 1 through 9. Ronald Acuna, Ozzie Albies, Austin Riley, Matt Olson. That's a great 4-man if you can afford to pay for it. It's very difficult to get to these guys. We were talking a little bit in Discord after the show yesterday just about how difficult it was to put the Braves together on DK with anything worthwhile. They were easy to get to on FanDuel. I had a bunch of lineups that were either Rodon or Kenta Maeda, plus Giants and Braves. It obviously didn't go well, but that combination specifically was easy to get to. And there were a bunch of other discounted stacks. So they're just easier to build with on the FanDuel slate. That's going to be true again today, especially with all those guys at the bottom of the lineup. 3,000, 2,900, 28, 27, 29 for Darno, Ozuna, Rosario, Arcia, and Harris. Those are just really low prices for all those guys. Those guys are more relatively expensive on the DK slate, and then you get the extreme pricing on the 4 stars up top. Almost went with Ozzie Albies as the home run pick of the day, and then I switched it up at the last minute. I went with Pete Alonso just to bring Alonso to life. Which and Carlos Stanton yesterday, the one good thing that happened in that Yankees game. So Gallen, I think Gallen's very playable. 9,400, 10-2. He projects okay. 10 points behind Strider in the FanDuel projections, but that's still a directionally okay projection. Going up against the Braves, it's obviously a fairly good one. He's been pitching really well overall this year. 3.14 ERA, a 3.50 xFIP, only walking 5.3%, 26.3% strikeouts. As long as he can avoid the premium contact against the Braves, I feel like he'll be fine. Braves project out at the top of the board again, but it's a little bit of a lighter one. It's not a wow, they're going to run off and hide with this slate. They're not pulling that kind of a run total in Vegas. Where are they at in Vegas? Let me see. Normally I have all these run totals in my head, but since I didn't write the article, 529. So they do have the slate leading total in Vegas, but it's not 6+ like we saw yesterday. It's not even 5.5. So 5.29, that's the highest on the board. It's certainly targetable, but it is Zach Gallen, a pitcher that I've got some respect for. So maybe the Braves don't go completely insane today. I'm definitely going to have them. They project, like I said, at the top of my board. They're near the top for home run upside, if not the top. So tons and tons of reasons to go to them. I don't know how much Diamondbacks I want in terms of their bats going up against Strider. It's obviously going to be a strong contrarian position. It's a position from which you'll be able to attack some Strider ownership on the board there. So I think some is justified, but he's very, very good at taking everything they do well away and finding strikeouts. So against a guy who's just going to create the strikeouts, I am a little bit hesitant to go to too many Diamondbacks. But you'll definitely be in a very differentiated position. There's a lot of very affordable bats on that team. Geraldo Perdomo back in the leadoff spot, 387 on base, makes him a dynamite leadoff hitter if he can sustain it, 121 WRC plus. I like that spot for him in the lineup if he gets getting on base. 4,200, 2,800, he's cheap, multi-position at second and short. Nice little usable part up at the top of the lineup. You're not going to use him at second instead of Ketel Marte all that often, but at 5,500 compared to 4,200 on DK, that's a playable switch. If you need that savings in a lineup that already has, like, let's say Corbin Carroll, Christian Walker, Dominic Canzone, and Emmanuel Rivera in it for whatever reason, you don't want to use Ketel Marte because you've got to pay for a pitcher. Perdomo fits that bill okay. He's not Ketel Marte, but he's okay. 15 homers for Marte this year, one of the better second basemen in the game. Very affordable, 55-35. He's a nice little piece at the top of the lineup there. Corbin Carroll turned into a star in front of our eyes this year. 249 ISO, 138 WRC plus, 41.6% hard hits, 6,000, 4,000, most expensive player on the team, but justifiably. Christian Walker, star caliber first baseman, power hitter, 20 home runs on the season. What I love about Walker, and I've mentioned it before, the 17% strikeout rate to go with all that power. That's a rare combination. A guy who hit 36 home runs last year and struck out 19.6% of the time. This year he's up to 20 already, only 17%, walks 10%. That makes it for a very good player. So I like Daniel Walker, just a guy who puts the ball in play, knows how to get on base when he's not hitting home runs. Canzone, we talked about the other day. We looked him up, got a little bit enthusiastic about some of his minor league numbers when we looked at him, and we said it was a bad matchup that day. So we said, hey, maybe we keep him in our pocket for a better spot. This is not that better spot against Spencer Strider, but he's very cheap, 2,100, playable in the 5 spot. If you're going to Diamondbacks, I would include him. Nice little price offset, decent capability. Just to put a button on it, we'll pull him back up here on Fangraphs real quick. Yeah, AAA last year, 364 plate appearances, 16 homers, 14 steals. This year, 304 plate appearances in AAA, 16 homers, 2 stolen bases. So, good mid-range power, maybe some speed type of a guy. But against Spencer Strider, not the greatest spot in the world. So this one is significant enthusiasm for Strider. I like the Braves bats, but I don't love the matchup against Gallen. But it's a day full of matchups that we're going to have to take bats in situations that we don't love. Otherwise, everybody's just playing, the Tigers against Zach Greinke. Everything else on the board, there's at least some argument to be made for some of the pitchers' talent. So definite interest in the Braves, limited interest in the Diamondbacks, but they're also on that list. Capable enough team in a spot where people will not be as enthusiastically on them. I think they're on the board as a playable part that way. And then Zach Gallen, I probably have Gallen above his team's bats. So Strider, Braves bats, Gallen, Diamondbacks. 6 games to go. Let's see if we got the Giants lineup. That is the good news, at least. We have most of these lineups in. Giants is in. Grab it. All these links, and I insist on scrolling. Built in all these nice little links, so I could just do that. And yet I use the scroll wheel, like every time. Larry says I'd rather have a calzone than play Canzone. Calzone for lunch is actually kind of a good idea. Like I said, I had some beers last night, so I always like to go for the greasy breakfast lunch. So if I don't end up with a bacon sandwich at some point this morning, I'll probably go for a couple slices of pizza around lunchtime after lineups are built. See what happens there. I'm not totally sure. Let's fix Encarnacion Strand here. I fixed that for Bethencourt somewhere in here. I built a little name fixer for that spot in Labs. I just got to add Encarnacion Strand to it. Larry says, Terry, I know this is one of those shitty takes, but Cobb has pitched like crap away from San Francisco for the last 3 years. I haven't looked into his home road, but I can pull it up real quick. Let's see. I do like Cobb, just in general, but this is just a lousy park anyway. So if you wanted to get away from Cobb, I wouldn't really begrudge you just moving away from that position in general. This year, yeah, it's fairly significant. 1.24 ERA at home, 4.15 ERA on the road, 52 innings on the road, 43 2/3 at home. Let's see what the expected numbers look like. 3.26 xFIP on the road, 3.28 xFIP at home, 3.58 FIP, 2.65 FIP. So the actual returns on the road have not been quite as strong, but the expected marks, this is this year only, the expected marks are directly in line with one another. I'll take a look at last year as well. Similar story last year. 2.83 xFIP at home, 2.97 on the road, 3.16 FIP, 2.54 FIP. That was in reverse order. Yeah, I'm gonna not be too concerned with it. Some clunky results on the road for sure. When you're looking on the surface layer, like the ERA last year, 5.20 on the road, 2.68 at home, but the expected numbers and the FIP, the things that he can control, like just the regular FIP, not the expected FIP, 3.16 on the road compared to that 5+ ERA. So is it that his defenders don't like to play well on the road? Is it that he's giving up, a couple of instances of luck? Things that are out of his control seem to be what burns him here. So, not sure exactly where it comes from, but I'm not going to be too concerned about it when the FIP numbers align that way and the xFIP aligns that way. Yeah, no worries, Larry. It's always worth looking at stuff that pops up like that, little interesting things like that. But it's always important to remember, the flaws in stats like ERA that are just going to give you. There's too much baked into ERA that has nothing to do with what the pitcher did. Too much defense is baked into ERA, too much of what the fielders do, the positioning, et cetera, et cetera. So taking that out of the equation and just looking at the numbers like FIP that focus on the things that the pitcher actually can control or is in his hands anyway. Once the ball leaves his hand, there's very little that he can do. But the things that are more directly related to how the pitcher is actually functioning, that's the numbers that I prefer looking at. So with that in mind, Alex Cobb in Cincinnati, I don't love it. It's not because of the road ERA. It is a pitcher that I like. 7,400, 8,800. It is the right price. I do think he's very, very playable. 20+% strikeout rate, 22.4% strikeout rate, 5.7% walks. What I really like about Alex Cobb in most situations is his ability to keep the ball in the yard. 1.72% home runs this year, 1.1 degree average launch angle, and that's a sustained trait for him over time. This is a terrible park for home runs. For pitchers, it's a good park for home run hitting. 1.43 home run rate last year, 1.27 the year before on extremely limited launch angles. So he's really good at checking opposing power. He's going to have to be on his game today, keep the ball on the ground. But I think he's got the upside to do that against the Reds. I just kind of don't love playing pitchers in this park. I kind of want to roster some Rays. So I'll have some of the Giant, or I'll have some of Alex Cobb, but I think he's a little bit lower down my list than he normally would be. There's also just a lot of really good pitchers that project better than him. So for price, he's certainly playable. He's on the board, but not my favorite spot here. Andrew Abbott, 8,800, 10-8 on the FanDuel slate. Certainly like him a lot better on the DK board. What did he do in that last start? I know that we finally brought him around in the model, and then he had that clunker. And then what did he do the last time out? Only 3 strikeouts that time. Oof. 2 home runs allowed, 2 walks, 2 earned runs, 3 hits, 6 innings. Not the best 2 starts in a row for Mr. Abbott here. Only 2 earned runs isn't terrible, but 2 homers and only 3 strikeouts. Not exactly what we're looking for there. We talked about the power that he was allowing the last 2 times that he went, that he was on the mound. 10.8% barrels, 43.3% hard hits, 91 miles an hour of exit velo, and a 4.28% home run rate. That's a lot of home runs. That's a lot of premium contact against a team that knows how to hit home runs off lefties pretty damn well. 2.45 ERA for Abbott, but a 4.59 xFIP. So that's one of the focus numbers. That's what I was talking about just a minute ago. Looking at the expected FIP number, FIP is fielding independent pitching. So it's things that are in his control, and then this is the expected version of that. 4.59, that is stark difference from 2.45 on the ERA. So that was why I was concerned about him going into a couple starts ago, but then he came through the model and started looking good, so we got on board. I'm gonna kind of lean into that and say that 27.3% strikeouts maybe is starting to come down already. Maybe comes down a little bit further, or even if it settles in there, not going to be 30+%. I'm probably not going to want to pay 10-8 for you. 4.59 xFIP in this park going up against this Giants team. I don't love the spot. Abbott obviously projects very, very well. That's one of the higher marks on the board. I think on DK, you can go to it a lot more enthusiastically than on FanDuel. I don't know that I want to pay that salary, that tax that's on him for the FanDuel slate. I'll have some, but probably not that much. It wouldn't totally surprise me if he went out and had a really good game, paid off that salary. He's obviously a talented kid, but there's a lot in his stat line. There's a lot in what he's already done this year that says that he's, targetable here. Bobby Dahlbeck. Looks like he's back again. Wonder how many days he'll be here for this time. So both pitchers are playable. Both pitchers are talented. It's just not a great spot. Bad ballpark. The run total's not all that high in this one, though. 9.5. Yeah, it's the highest on the board. Not crazy high. 10.5 like it's been the last couple of days was, I guess, what I noticed when I popped that in. So Giants 4.73 implied total, or 4.74, and the Reds at a 4.86. So definitely some expectation of runs here. I think we're safe in going to, limited doses of either of these pitchers and focus more on bats in this game. Against the lefty, the Giants lead off Austin Slater, who I like quite a bit, 3,600, 2,600. Not a premium power bat, but a guy who can turn on one in the right situation. 10.9% barrels, 50% hard hits in 98 plate appearances. 333, 408, 506. That's what I like even better. Just get on base. Let the home run hitters behind you drive you in. Wilmer Flores, definitely a priority bat in the Giant stacks against the lefty here. Mike Yastrzemski, lefty. I'm not worried about it that much. Pat Bailey, Luis Matos, Jock Peterson. Jock gets a little dicier, lefty. Not sure what let me see what he's doing this year. Lefty. It'll be a small sample. It always is with Jock. He's mostly a platoon-focused player for most of his career. They wanted him to be more full-time, but he just doesn't produce against lefties. Yeah, 28 plate appearances against lefties this year, 0 homers, 143, 357, 190, .048 ISO, 77 WRC plus. Not great lefty for Jock. David VR, Casey Schmidt, Brett Wisely, round out the lineup down there. I'll take a quick look at Yaz's splits too, just for the hell of it. Memory serves, he's better. Not better himself against lefties, but better than Jock against lefties. Yeah, Yaz, 59 plate appearances this year, lefty, 3 home runs. Not great in terms of the triple slash, 196, 237, 357, but a 161 ISO. Only a 60 WRC plus because he doesn't hit for average, doesn't get on base. But you've got a little bit more power potential from Yastrzemski against the lefty here. They chase Abbott early. Both those guys are in business against righties out of the bullpen. I don't want to take them out or deprioritize them, but if I'm building Giant stacks, I'm more focused on a couple of the righties, and then you work in one or the other of the 2 lefties maybe. Red side of things, looks like the currently standard version of the lineup. No, somebody's missing. India? No, India's in there. Who am I missing? Well, regardless, it's a very playable lineup from 1 through 7. Bottom of the lineup is good with Will Benson and Luke Maile. They've both been fairly productive. Maile, backup catcher, 2,300 on either site. 3 home runs and 102 plate appearances, a 168 ISO. Perfectly playable for a backup catcher. Benson's been good, 2,800 in the outfield on either site. Helps you pay for the more expensive guys above him. But the priorities in the lineup are obviously these guys. Ellie was also nearly a home run pick for the day just for the hell of it, but then I remembered that it's against Alex Cobb, so I didn't go with it. And you can see Cobb's impact on these home run numbers. Everybody's trimmed down pretty significantly here. But the Reds are good for stolen bases. They're good for getting on. They're good for sequencing. They're good for run creation, not just focused on home runs. So I think you can go to the Reds against Cobb. It's just not ideal. If I'm doing it, I'm focused 1 through 7. You can bolt these guys on if you build a lot of them. Jake Fraley from the left side, lots of power, 13 home runs, 16 stolen bases. Joey Votto, 8 home runs in 89 plate appearances this year. Again, tons of power from the left side for Votto. TJ Friedel's got a little bit of pop, but he's more a hit tool guy, more a stolen base guy. 6 home runs on the year is very surprising from a guy with a 1.9% barrel rate, 24.3% hard hit rate, but he manages to get it done. Ellie, below league average for run creation after 160 plate appearances. Sound the alarm bells. Ellie's in trouble. 47.5% hard hits, only 4% barrels, 31.3% strikeouts. You take the good with the bad with Ellie. He'll be perfectly fine. Willing to pay the tax. If I'm going to Reds, I definitely want him in my lineups. Spencer Steer having a great season. Outfield in 3rd on DK, outfield in 1st on FanDuel. They're very, very playable. It's just not the greatest pitching matchup. But like I said, if we're going to be looking for a team to create runs, base hits, some stolen bases on a heavy pitching day, I think the Reds are definitely on that list of teams that could be a good asset from that regard. We have four guys in double digits for stolen bases, another one at 9, another one at 8. A lot of decent on-base percentages. So I'm happy to go to some Red stacks here. Ranking this one out would probably be Reds bats, Giants bats, tie between the 2 pitchers. I'll give Abbott a little edge just because of how the model has him projected 10 points higher. Brewers with Corbin Burns, 12 strikeouts the last time out, I think. A lot of strikeouts that last time out. 24.8% on the year, 4.05 xFIP, 3.73 ERA. Has been kind of all over the place, But when he's been on, and he's been finding strikeouts in those games, and he's been pitching deep in those games. Not as tragically bad as many think or had been thinking prior to that last start. Let's see in the just taking a quick look at the game log. One game where he gave up 7, one game where he gave up 5, one game where he gave up 6 in 19 starts. Every other start, two games where he gave up 4. Every other start was a 3 runs or less, and pitched 6 innings or more in, I'm going to call it 2/3 of his starts, just eyeballing it, possibly more than 2/3 of his starts. So he's working deep into games, like regardless of what happens. Several of these games where he gave up, 4 runs, 5 runs, were fairly deep performances. So I'm not really worried about Corbin Burns, and I'm happy to pay for him at $8,593. Even if he gives up a little bit at those prices with the strikeout upside that he's got, that's a decent asset here. He projects similar to like where Cobb was, but I like the matchup here against the Phillies a little bit more for some strikeout upside, for some not being in the Cincinnati ballpark. It's a very good lineup for Philly, but I'm kind of on the Burns side of this one, especially getting that pitcher at these discounted prices. I'm always willing to get a little enthusiastic about that spot. On the other side with the Phillies, Taijuan on the hill, league average pitcher. Definition of a league average guy, has done it exactly around league average for most of his career. He's back in that neighborhood again this year with a 4.0 ERA, a 4.42 xFIP, a 21.1% strikeout rate over 103rd. He's playable. He's okay. 7,384. I think he's at worst on the SP2 list on DK for 7,300. There's definitely upside going up against the Brewers. We've seen them get defeated by probably worse pitchers than Taijuan Walker, or at least similar pitchers to Taijuan Walker. So at price, he's perfectly fine. Not appealing overall. Not really a great option at 8,400 on the FanDuel slate. He's playable over there. Price-wise, where is he ranked price-wise? 84. I'd rather probably go to Quintana. Cobb at 88. None of these guys. So I guess he's the best of the $8,000 guys on FanDuel, but I like Quintana there at 73 a little bit. Not sure how deep Quintana's going to go in the game, though. But, yeah, so like I was saying, Taijuan, for discount, is at least on the list. If you're looking for a cheap pitcher, he's one of the better cheap pitching options today. Brewers are targetable. You've got Christian Yelich up top, William Contreras, Willy Adames. But even when you hit Willy Adames, you start talking about some pretty flawed players in this lineup. He's good for home run upside. He's got 16 on the year, a 194 ISO, 13.4% barrel rate, only 34.5% hard hits, strikes out 25% of the time, 210, 293, 404 hitter. Not the greatest hitter in the world. After him, Owen Miller, Caratini. Caratini can make good contact, but he's a backup catcher. He's a non-threatening overall hitter. Nice little 50% hard hit rate in his 132 plate appearances, 5 home runs. If you're looking for a very cheap catcher, or if you're stacking Brewers, I would include Caratini in your lineup, but he's not a threat to Taijuan. Raimel Tapia, Andrew Monasterio, Bryce Turang, Blake Perkins. Any one of these guys could get Taijuan Walker easily. I mean, they're not good players, but he's not a good pitcher. But I think there's enough upside, and the argument that I'm making there is that this is just a lousy low-end kind of a lineup. So if we're going to play Taijuan against anybody, this is a candidate team anyway. They're not as bad as like the Royals or a team like that, but they're not good. Nobody really cracking the home run model except for maybe Willy Adames at 8.39. Plenty of strikeouts on deck for him. So I like the spot for both of these starters. Much, much more enthusiasm about Corbin Burns, but Taijuan at a discount is playable. And then bats, some of the top end of the Brewers, you can run that from 1 through 9 if you want. Like Blake Perkins for 24 is okay. 2 home runs, 4 stolen bases, and 108 plate appearances, former second-round pick. Never became anything, but at least an athlete who's like, okay at baseball. Tapia, similar kind of a thing, moderate power, okay speed, not really a guy who was another guy is a decent prospect once upon a time who never really landed. Supposed to be a good hit tool and speed guy, never really delivered. This lineup's kind of just riddled with guys like that, and Christian Yelich and Contreras with their power. So not great on the Brewers side of things. You get some multi-position, they're very cheap. They'll probably come up a little bit given how cheap they are. Phillies lineup I like better, obviously. Better team, better lineup from 1 through 9. Derek Hall at the bottom of the lineup, 2,700, 2,100. Tons of power there. 53 plate appearances, only one home run, a .078 ISO. But I believe the power's there. Left side of the plate. A lot of lefties in this lineup to face Corbin Burnes as well. So I think you can go to Phillies, not as like a direct 1-to-1 ratio type of a hedge, but I'm definitely going to take some Phillies bats and hedge off my Corbin Burnes position because I do like the power. I do like the lefties. Schwarber, tons and tons of power, 26 homers on the year, a .257 ISO. Trey Turner up to 249, 300, 388, 140 ISO, 84 WRC plus, 10 homers, 21 steals. It's not great. He's not going to have a good line at the end of the season, but at least like the counting stats are coming around. Some of it's coming together a little bit for Trey Turner. So it's not going to be a complete tragedy, but it's not a good season for Turner. 55, 31, still hasn't really come down much in DraftKings price. 31 is cheap on FanDuel. Castellanos, dynamite season, remains too cheap, still don't understand it. Bryce Harper, 5,433, 4 home runs, 6 steals on the year, 123 WRC plus. Not playing exactly like the Bryce Harper that we know and love, but 300, 394, 422, creating runs, doing everything right on the field, making good contact too, 12.1% barrels, 42.8% hard hits. Just hasn't really delivered the power, 4 home runs and 269 plate appearances. Took him a while to get to that 4th one. So the power hasn't really come back after the surgery yet, but doing everything else well. So I'm willing to put him into to stacks for sure. First base and outfield eligibility on FanDuel is quite nice. 3,300 is pretty cheap for Bryce Harper on the FanDuel slate, particularly when you give him that first base eligibility on a team that doesn't have a priority first baseman. So I kind of like that. Alec Boehm, Bryson Stott, Brandon Marsh, players that I like to build into Philly stacks, players that you can get to for cheap prices and use as utilities. Click them into lineups like if you're building a 5-man with 3 random guys on DK, or a 2-man 5-2-1 type of a configuration. 2 of those guys are perfectly playable together, like Bowman Stott. I'm perfectly fine with that, or Brandon Marsh and Stott. However you want to put it together, I'm fine with using those guys for cheap prices from this team. They've been productive enough this year, all 3 of them above average for run creation. Decent power, not great power hitters, but decent power. All 3 of them have very good hit tools, good on base skills. So Boehm, Stott, and Marsh are certainly on the list of playable parts here for Philly. So this one was going to say Corbin Burnes, Phillies bats, Brewers bats, Taijuan Walker. Nah, let me unwind that. I'm going to put Taijuan above the Brewers bats. I don't really feel comfortable about that. I don't really trust Taijuan Walker as far as I can throw him, but I think he's good enough against this team. And I think that the Brewers, given all those prices, might get a little popular against them. Pods and the Blue Jays. Blake Snell rocketing to the top of the board, 38.7 in the FanDuel projections. I think that has him second to Spencer Strider, going up against a tough Blue Jays team. But he's definitely got the strikeout upside, 32.4% strikeout rate in 103 innings. There is major strikeout potential anytime Blake Snell's on the mound. We also get the flaws in the 12.1% walk rate. Gets himself into a lot of trouble, but has the upside to pitch his way out of it. That's the good news. And is very familiar with that situation from just being this guy through most of his career. 15.1% swinging, 30.8% CSW. Just a dynamite lights out strikeout pitcher. Hasn't really had issues with power or home runs this year. 2.56% home run rate, only 87.9 miles an hour of exit velo, 34.7% hard hits. Not easy to square up Blake Snell. 9,000 on the DK slate. Nice little discount there. 10-6 paying full freight for him, but totally willing to do it on the FanDuel slate. Blue Jays on the other side, I do think you can go to Blue Jays bats against Snell, but it's not a great situation given the fact that he's not really filthy for power. George Springer, Bo Bichette, Vladdy Guerrero, those guys can hit home runs against anybody. 7+ marks in the home run model. Throw Matt Chapman into the mix at 6.3. There's your power from the Blue Jays side of things. Bottom of the lineup, not the normal version of it. Whit Merrifield in there is typical. I like that spot, 4,100, 3,000 multi-position, second base and outfield. No Brandon Belt against the lefty. No Dalton Varsho against the lefty. We get Jordan Luplow, who does have a little bit of power for the dead minimum, 2,000 on both sites. 7 plate appearances, hasn't done anything this year. Hit 11 home runs in 234 last year, 11 home runs in 193 the year before. So does have a little bit of pop. Sub-Mendoza type hitter. Home run or bust. But he's lurking down there at the minimum. I wouldn't leave him out of my plans if I'm building 20 Blue Jays stacks. I'll say that much. Kirk, Kiermaier, certainly playable parts. Kirk got a little bit of pop behind the plate. Kiermaier hit you a little bit for average, maybe be involved in the offense. Not really a priority for offensive purposes, though. So kind of a flawed version of the Blue Jays lineup from 5 down, or from 6 down, rather. Whit Merrifield, perfectly fine major league player. 6 home runs, 19 stolen bases, good correlated scoring option. Just kind of hitting him 5th isn't really doing anybody any favors because he doesn't wrap back around to the top of this lineup and get in front of the RBI guys. He's not the best option for driving these guys in, and these guys aren't the best option for driving him in. So it's just kind of a weird lineup spot for Whit Merrifield when it comes to like DFS purposes, what we're looking for. He's going to have to get 2 or 3 hits, steal a base, score a run somehow to pay off that spot in that lineup. Whereas if he was in, like, let's say the leadoff spot ahead of these guys, he'd get on base and then get driven in 2 or 3 times and, like, not worry about stealing, not worry about, like, having to create those points on his own. So it's just kind of a clunkier spot in the lineup. Padres up against Chris Bassett. Definitely a targetable spot. Pods were, I think, 2nd on the fantasy point projections, high up in, or one of the higher ranked teams, I guess, in the home run model on a light home run day. Partly driven by Fernando Tatis being one of the very few guys. I think it was like 3 guys above the magic number for home runs today. 3 or 4. So Tatis is one of those guys. Juan Soto obviously has that kind of power. They've got the same home run totals, same run scored totals this year. 136 WRC plus for Tatis, 150 for Soto. Manny Machado, Xander Bogaerts, 2 stars that are at discounts in this lineup at the top. Cronenworth, flawed season for him, but playable part. Gary Sanchez, when he makes contact, drives the ball like crazy. 190, 261, 416. Certainly not what we're looking for from a hitter, but we love the power from Gary. 10.9% barrels, 9 home runs and 153 plate appearances. Very, very cheap as a catcher. Very playable. Carpenter sucks. Alfonso Rivas has made 8 plate appearances in the show. 126 WRC plus for him at the dead minimum at first base. Trent Grisham, reasonably playable part. Would be better if he was hitting higher up in the lineup. Like I think I said this yesterday, switching Trent Grisham up to the 5 spot where Cronenworth might be worth doing for them at this point, considering Cronenworth hasn't really created runs and Trent Grisham has been from the bottom of the lineup. Might be a good time to give him a shot, like a little higher up. Not a great team, not a great lineup. Top end is very, very good. Top 4 is very good. You can bolt on basically anybody from down here. In order, I would probably say Gary, Cronenworth, Grisham, and then take or leave Carpenter and Rivas. Let me see what Rivas' deal is. Uh, 26. Unranked. I did have 287 plate appearances with the Cubbies last year. 3 home runs, 235, 322, 307. Not a good option, really. I forgot that he was on the Cubs last year. Part-time player, not a great option. So, yeah, I'm not, wouldn't prioritize Rivas at the bottom, but he's there at first base if you want him for 2,000. So this one would be, and I didn't really touch too much on Chris Bassett because he's Chris Bassett and he's annoying, but I do think he's at least a playable part. 7,500 on DK puts him on the SP2 board for sure. He's been all over the map as well this season. A couple good games, a couple total disasters. Let me pull up the game log here real quick. Last time out, 6 innings, 2 runs, 5 strikeouts, perfectly fine, 7 hits. Wasn't great, but perfectly fine. Gave you the depth, gave you the quality start bonus. Start before that against the Tigers, only went 4 innings, 4 strikeouts, gave up 3 runs on 9 hits. Few starts back, there were 3 inning starts in a row in mid-June. One of them against Baltimore, he gave up 8 runs. Another one against the Rangers, he only went 3 2/3, gave up 3 runs, 5 runs, 3 earned, 7 hits. A lot of hits, a lot of earned runs. It's not safe, but on the right day, Bassett is a good pitcher. He typically works pretty deep into games, 115 2/3 innings in 20 starts. He chases quality start bonuses. He chases win bonuses on the right day. He's playable. Doesn't project well here. One of the lower strikeout rates on the board from the list of capable good pitchers. 21.9% strikeout rate isn't really all that worth chasing against these pods. If he gets through that top 4 2 or 3 times, we're pretty much in business, though. That's the appealing part of it. 4.12 ERA, 4.36 xFIP, a little bit of power allowed. He hasn't been good, but he's been okay in most of his starts. And then just those total messes skew the numbers a little bit. So limited interest in Bassett, but some. The price is right on DK, not so much on FanDuel. Should be probably $500 cheaper on FanDuel. So a little bit of Bassett, definitely some Blake Snell. Probably would go Snell tie between the two teams, maybe, because I don't love the matchup for the Blue Jays, and it's not the best version of their lineup. So probably like a tie. They're basically configured the same way with a top-heavy top 4, a capable 5th hitter, and then a messy bottom. That's kind of both of these teams today. So put them on the same tier and then put Bassett below them. So Snell, both teams bats, Bassett. 3 games to go. Let's see what's going on in the chat. Shannon says, interesting that Seattle game is just 7 runs when both pitchers have been bad lately and both teams have been scoring in the first 2 games. Yeah, that series has been a little surprising in terms of we've been targeting it for pitching, and they've been, Stephen Leibowitz said nobody likes a messy bottom. I was wondering if somebody, I heard it as I said it. I was wondering if that was going to get picked up. Yeah, it's interesting that game is low total, but both of those guys are very, very high-end pitchers. So we'll get there. But that's a game I like for pitching. Let's talk this one through real quick. The Mets with Jose Quintana making his first start of the season against Michael Kopech. I think we're targeting Kopech with some of these Mets bats. Like I said, Pete Alonso, another one of the few guys above the magic number for home runs. I threw the home run pick in Petey's direction. We've hit it the last couple of days in a row, so hopefully he keeps us going. But I like this top end for the Mets, all the way down to Francisco Alvarez in the 6th spot. I don't love Jeff McNeil. Let's see if we got the confirmed. We do. It is, I think, exactly this. So I don't love Jeff McNeil. He's a slap hitter. He needs BABIP to get him on base. He'd be better served in a different spot in the lineup, but decent table setter ahead of Francisco Alvarez. Like if Pete clears these guys off the bases, McNeil can reset the table for Francisco Alvarez, Brett Beatty behind him. So he's playable in Met stacks, but not priority. Top 4 are priorities. Alvarez is a priority. Brett Beatty's a priority. I like all of those hitters. Mark Canha's totally playable. 2,200, 2,400 for the veteran. Not having a great season, but above average for run creation at 111 WRC plus. 6 homers, 7 steals, and only 266 plate appearances. That's very playable. And Canha's been a good player over the course of time. 13 homers and 542 last year with a 128 WRC plus, 17 homers and 625 with a 115 the year before that. So good playable part from the bottom of the lineup for a very, very cheap price. You get him at outfield and first base eligibility on the FanDuel slate. Not that you're going to play him over Pete Alonso all that frequently, but it's there. It's an option. McNeil, second base and outfield, so a little bit of positional flex. Not really high prices. Nobody in the 5,000s on the DK slate because like Lindor perceived slump, I'm going to say. Because all the counting stats are there. 19 home runs, 13 stolen bases, a 230 ISO, 115 WRC plus. Just hasn't really been hitting for average. Hasn't been a Francisco Lindor season, but the counting stats are perfectly fine. The DFS stuff is still there. So he's really cheap at 47. Pete's been slumping badly. 203, 304, 475. Been stuck at 26 home runs for quite a while now. But that's why he's 4,800 on the DK slate. Just really, really discounted over there. Not as much on FanDuel, but he's a $4,000 player when he's going right. So a little bit of a discount there. Pham is still very, very cheap despite having a very good year. He's not at like Nick Castellanos levels of production this year, but he's cheaper than Castellanos, and they're not raising either one of these guys' prices for having a good year. So I'm happy to go to that. Brandon Nimmo's a spectacular leadoff hitter, 14 homers. He's too cheap, 4,200, 3,300. Just too cheap for a very, very good player who creates runs 26% better than average, gets on base at a 359 clip, has 14 home runs of his own. I like the spot for the Mets. Kopech, decent strikeout pitcher, 25.5% strikeouts, but very hittable. A lot of power available, 14.4% barrels, 90.1 miles an hour of exit velo, 4.72% home runs. Pitching to a 4.47 ERA, a 5.19 xFIP, walking 13.9%. That is targetable. At that point, I don't care that you're striking out 1 and 4. Fire away with Mets bats here. Target all this power that he's allowed. He's an okay pitcher. He's got good stuff. He's got a blazing fastball, but he's never really put it together at the major league level. 7,000, 8,000 if you wanted to throw a few darts at Michael Kopech strikeouts, that's fine, but it's not really a play on my board. I'm probably not going to be using much Kopech here. It could go through. It could be one of those, hey, had a good day at a value price, and it got there kind of a plays. It wouldn't shock me by any means. He's going to have a few good starts this season, but not my favorite spot targeting these Mets. Just they do a lot of things well in terms of creating runs, in terms of getting on base. Disappointing team overall this year, but there's a lot of good hitters in that lineup. Quintana, 6,000, 7,300. Like I said, making his debut start. Let me see what he did in the ramp up. This is the shit that I usually do when I'm writing the articles. Don't pop up a thing. Damn it. Continue without this yet. There we go. Perfect. Excuse all the sniffling, by the way. Sorry about that. I know it's not that appealing to hear somebody sniffling into the microphone, but it's better than having just fucking snot dripping down my face all morning. Quintana made his last official rehab start on July 8th when he threw 4 in the third innings for AAA Syracuse, gave up 5 runs, threw 84 pitches on July 13th in a simulated game. So a week ago, threw 84 pitches in a simulated. Let's call it 80, 85 pitches. I'm pretty comfy with that. Capable guy. Good pitcher, has had good seasons. 20.2% strikeouts last year with a 2.93 ERA, 3.72 xFIP. Year before, much better in terms of strikeouts, 28.6% strikeouts. Ugly ERA at 6.43, but the xFIP was 3.75. That's perfectly fine, directly in line with last year. 4.04% home runs that season, 1.18% last year. So was a different pitcher year to year. Much fewer strikeouts, but everything else more under control last year. Year before that, more strikeouts, a lot more offense against him. Is he going to have a successful day today against these White Sox? That's our big question of the day. I think at these prices, it's worth trying to find out. 6,000 is a very discounted price on the DK slate today for a guy who does have strikeout upside. If he gets 85 pitches, there's plenty of potential against the White Sox. I'll definitely grab some hedge positions of White Sox if I get carried away with any Quintana here. He's not getting any ownership projection. I'm looking at Grinders right now. No ownership projected for him whatsoever. They've got him in an okay number. I've got him about a strikeout higher. Excuse me, this one. I got him about a strikeout higher than they do. But I think he's a playable part. More so on DK, where I don't care about the quality start. More so on DK, where I need 2 pitchers. I think he's on that value board for sure. Going up against the White Sox, it's a decent enough strikeout matchup, 23.6% for this confirmed lineup. There are some very good right-handed hitters. They get Eloy Jimenez back today, so that's another very, very good right-handed power hitter in the lineup. These 3 guys you fear. These 2 guys have been underperforming, although Benintendi's pulled himself together. Timmy's been just a total mess at the plate all season. It's really these 3 guys in the heart of the lineup that he's got to get around, though. Outside of that, some non-threatening guys down here, a couple underperformers up top. So some tepid interest in Quintana as a value play. You can see the home run marks here for those 3 right-handed hitters, though. All 3 of those guys above the magic number. That's Lubob, that's Eloy Jimenez, and that's Jake Berger. Lubob, 28 homers, 300 ISO. Hit his 28th last night. Almost went with him for the home run pick today as well. I think he's the very top of the board. Yep, very top of the board. Love that. So these are your guys above the magic number. No real surprises. Maybe Jake Berger's a little bit of a surprise. But Lubob, Pete Alonso, Matt Olson, Jake Berger, Acuna, Tatis, and then Ozzy Albies is my next man in at 9.44. Light hitting day. So, yeah, we're going to Mets. Only darts of Kopech, value darts of Quintana as well. Like the Quintana spot a little bit better, I think. I don't know why, but I'm expecting the Mets to get to Kopech here. Definitely will play some White Sox going against Quintana, and I'm not going to get carried away. I'm talking about 5% ownership, something like that. I doubt I get to 10%. If he's in 15 lineups, I've probably done something incorrect. But I do think there's enough on the bone there, and then more so on the DK slate at 6,000. Definitely gets to some of the White Sox power bats. I just don't know, I go to these three guys, and then in which direction do I go? I don't love the Oscar Colas spot in this spot against the lefty. Definitely don't like Elvis Andrus. Grandal and Remillard haven't been great. Don't love Benintendi off the top. Timmy, it's tough. It might just be like a 3-man and then pick a one-off from somewhere else. So let's call it Mets bats. Mets bats, White Sox bats, Quintana, Kopech. Should probably be Kopech Quintana, though. Super targetable game for bats, oddly, given that it's a Tigers-Royals game. Let me drop the lineups in. Tigers, Royals. Oh, this is a fun version of the Royals lineup. $11:22. Slate starts in less than an hour. 2 games to go. Michael Lorenzen, Zach Greinke. If you're playing either one of these pitchers, I think it's probably Michael Lorenzen. 5,500 is okay on DK. 83 is crazy for Michael Lorenzen, but he's been semi-capable this year. 19.5% strikeouts, 6.7% walks, a 4.27 xFIP, 3.75 ERA. This is in line. Those are basically in line. 1 in 5 strikeouts is okay. Not terrible for power. Not a good pitcher by any means, but it could deliver. At the discount, I think is worth going to for some shares against the Royals here. All their ridiculous strikeouts, 25.6% strikeout rate for this version of the lineup. Plenty of strikeouts available for Michael Lorenzen. So maybe he has a good day. You catch him in the right spot. At the DK price, it's definitely worth doing. I like that better than the Quintana spot. He projects out a little bit better or roughly the same. He's cheaper going up against a worse lineup in the Royals. Lorenzen's definitely targetable for some upside here on the DK slate. 83 makes it difficult on FanDuel. I'll pay it because I like the value spot here and I just target the Royals like crazy. But I'm uncomfortable paying 83 for Michael Lorenzen. Greinke on the other side. I know it's the Tigers. I just can't really get there. 16.4% strikeouts, only 3.3% walks, 5.44 ERA, 4.44 xFIP is much better, but plenty of contact available, plenty of home runs allowed, some good lefty hitters in that lineup now that I want to get to. I think I'm siding with the Tigers here. It wouldn't totally stun me if Greinke went out and had a 28, 30 point FanDuel performance where it's like, all right, you pitched 6 clean innings, struck out 3 hitters, and you were okay. Kind of like what with the kid from Ashcraft. The kid from was it Ashcraft? Whoever the hell it was yesterday from the Reds. That we talked about on the show. Somebody said, he's the kind of guy that's going to go out and break the slate. And then he went out and had an okay game, but he only struck out 3, so it didn't add up to enough. And he didn't get to that slate breaker score. That's the kind of game if Greinke has a good day that we could get. And I think it's just targetable with a 4.62% home run rate. The Tigers are not good, but Torkelson's good. Kerry Carpenter's good. Riley Green is good. So these 3 guys, maybe some McKinstry off the top. He's been productive against righties this year as a lefty bat off the top, multi-position eligible, only 2,400, 3,600. Javi Baez, Nick Maton, Akil Baddoo, Andy Ibanez, and Eric Haas gets a little dicey down toward the bottom there. Baez is moderately playable, just given his career history, really. Nothing that he's done this year suggests that we should play him, but at least he's cheap for what he's done in his career, I guess. Maton from the left side is cheap. Akil Baddoo also on the left side, 2,400, 2,300. That's a good asset down lineup in the 7 spot. Decent little home run hitter, speed guy. Not outrageous. 13 homers, 18 steals 2 years ago and 461. Last year was a clunker, only 2 home runs, 9 steals and 225. This year, 4 and 6 in 192. Not a great player, but a capable enough asset going up against Zach Greinke if you need a late cheap bat in the Tigers lineup. So more enthusiasm about the Tigers than the Royals. More enthusiasm about Michael Lorenzen than Zach Greinke for sure. I think you can go to some Royals for sure against Lorenzen here. But you get this Kyle Isbell hitting second. You get no Bobby Witt in the lineup. You do have Sal in the lineup. You do have MJ, Olivares, Nick Prado. I'll always play, if I go to Royals, I'll always play some Nick Pratto, especially when there's a righty on the mound. He's just flawed. 37.7% strikeout rate is egregiously bad, but there is good power in that bat. 6 home runs in 276 plate appearances, 44.3% hard hits, 9.3% barrels, and he only costs $2,800 on both sites, outfield and first base eligible on FanDuel. Makes him easy enough to play when you're building Royal stacks. Not a reason to go say, hey, I need 10 Royal stacks so I can play Nick Pratto, but if you're playing 10 Royal stacks, Nick Pratto should probably be in 5 of them. Melendez, we talk about him all the time. No stats to speak of, but a fantastic contact profile. That is still true. Sal's cheap at 4,400, 2,800. That's a playable part if you're going to one-off a catcher on DK. That's not a bad spot to look. $4,400 for Sal Perez is very, very cheap given his power upside. 15 homers on the season, a 185 ISO, 96 WRC+. plus. Everybody in the lineup for KC is below average for run creation this year. 3 guys in the lineup for Detroit are above average or at the average. So better lineup for Detroit today. Targetable pitcher on the mound for KC. Let's go Tigers. God, that's uncomfortable. So definitely going Tigers, Lorenzen, Royals, and then somewhere on the floor down over there is Zach Greinke. Last game of the slate. Probably got lineup. Nope, no lineups here yet. Because this one doesn't start until 3:40 in the afternoon. Why is it on a 12:20 slate? I really hate this day of fantasy baseball. I love it. I still love baseball. I still love fantasy baseball. But, man, this slate sucks. All right. Last game on deck. We refer to the pitching. It was Ashcraft's dude. All right. Thanks. See old goldfish brain again. Shannon says Greinke's going to troll again today. Probably. Boy. Let's see. Pody Jet Stoner says stack life. Like that. Are those Kirby's recent 3 DK scores, Larry? 1.9, 18.8, and 27.4? Yeah. One clunker in there for sure. Look, even the best pitchers in the league are going to have a couple of clunkers every season. And Kirby's a very talented pitcher, but he's not one of the best pitchers in the league. So you expect the occasional clunker, especially when it comes to fantasy scoring, because he's not a big time strikeout pitcher. If he just gives up a couple of earned runs, his starts are kind of shot a lot of the time because he's not a guy who typically goes out there and racks up 8 to 10 strikeouts every time. 20.7% in 112 and 2/3, 18 starts. What I love about Kirby is he's very, very good at finding those clean innings. 2.4% walk rate, 1.07 whip. Doesn't really give anything up. Doesn't get himself into trouble. Doesn't really have issues with home runs. 3.43 ERA, 3.76 xFIP, a 2.89% home run rate. That's despite 40.7% hard hits. Launch angle's not terrible, 12.4 degrees, a lot of balls on the ground. But yeah, I think this is a super playable spot for George Kirby at 8,300, 9,700. We've seen the Twins and the Mariners provide some offense the last few days. They're capable offensive bats, but these are targetable teams because of all the strikeouts, because of the aggressive, over-the-top strikeout approach. But when you get them on the wrong day, you run into a buzzsaw of home runs. That's what these two teams focus on, is hitting the ball for home runs and not worrying about all their strikeouts. They're 2 examples of that approach that are just happen to be facing each other this week. So we've been talking about pitchers in this series all along. There's definitely some capable bats on both sides. Double-digit home runs for a solid handful of the Mariners through the middle of the lineup. Double-digit home runs in a variety of spots for the Twins so far this season, and very capable home run hitters over time. Some of whom are underperforming, like Carlos Correa, like Byron Buxton. Joey Gallo's having an okay season in terms of power. So there are threats to George Kirby in this lineup, but he's one of my top projected pitchers. I think he's at a little bit of a discount for his talents on DK, probably about appropriately priced on the FanDuel slate, but I'm definitely going to get to George Kirby. I'm definitely going to get to Pablo Lopez at more expensive pricing on the other side of this one. You can target the Mariners for strikeouts in the exact same way that you target the Twins for strikeouts. Pablo's been fantastic this year, 30.2% strikeouts, 3.52 xFIP, 4.24 ERA. I know the last couple have been clunky. I'll pull up the game log. We can take a quick look at the recent outings. And for Pablo, it's the numbers were always going to normalize. He was not going to be crazy elite all season, but he's still been pretty good. I mean, there were, let's see, going back Let's go back 9 starts ago at the end of May. He gave up 4 runs in that start, struck out 6. Gave up 6 runs in the next start, struck out 5. 1 run, 3 runs, 4 runs, 3 runs, 1 run, 0 runs in the next run of starts, with strikeout totals, no game below 6 strikeouts, 2 games with 9, 1 with 10. Then he had a complete game shutout against the Royals, struck out 12, allowed 4 hits, and then he had that disaster on us against the Athletics. Give up 7 runs to the goddamn Athletics, 2 homers, 7 strikeouts, walked 3. Still did find 7 strikeouts in that game, so he helped offset his numbers a little bit as the game went on. But the 7 earned runs is a disaster. 2 home runs, some bad luck in there, really, for him to give up 2 home runs in that spot. And that's where the runs came from. It's not anything I'm concerned about. It's not like he's had a run of really, really bad performances. So I do expect the numbers over time are going to normalize a little bit more. 4.24 ERA is about normalized. 3.52 xFIP. 30.2% strikeouts. He'll probably finish the season around 27, 28%. That'll come down a little bit more. But he's a good pitcher. He's a talented guy. They made some changes for him in the offseason after they signed him, and it had fantastic results. So I like the spot for Pablo. I think it's a capable pitcher against a high strikeout team. They hit 2 home runs against him. He has a bad start. If they don't, he probably has a good one. Definitely a good option for depth too, by the way. 116 2/3 in 19 starts. So gives you good depth, good shot at the quality start bonus. If you're playing Twins, you're going to Carlos Correa despite the slump. Edward Julian has been fantastic. 318, 394, 574, 167 WRC plus in 171 plate appearances, up to 9 home runs. He's had a really just torrid month. Somebody put his stats side by side over the last 30 days with Luis Arias, and he's been out hitting Luis Arias in terms of the hit tool over the last month. Just really been rolling. 3,100, 2,800, totally playable at second base. Buxton, Kirilloff, Kepler. Assuming Buxton's in the lineup today, you can play him, but he's struggling and banged up a little bit. Excuse me. So I don't know how much I want to get to him. 5,200, 3,000. He's discounted for the struggles, but it's not been a great season for Buxton. 15 home runs, 214 ISO, below average by 10 points on the WRC plus, below the Mendoza line. A lot of strikeouts at 31.3%. Not ideal. Kirilloff, Willie Castro, Kyle Farmer, all playable parts. Kyle Farmer's got that weird power that we've talked about a few times, mid-double digits power, or mid-teens rather power the last 2 years. I think he hit a home run that last time out when we talked about it. 2,700 second base, third base on DK, 2,600 second, third, and short on FanDuel. Just a nice little playable part when stacking Twins. Again, not somebody to prioritize or say, I need to build twin stacks so I can have Kyle Farmer, but if you are building twin stacks, Kyle Farmer should be a big part of them. Joey Gallo, very flawed at the plate, but great walk rate, great power, extreme strikeout rate at 41.4%. We all know and love Joey Gallo. 2,627 for Max Kepler is cheap for that lefty bat and his power in the middle of the lineup. So if I'm stacking Twins, I'm playing these 2 guys. I'll take Byron Buxton if he's in the lineup, but I don't love it. Kirilloff's only okay. Kepler I like. Castro with his speed upside, but it would probably be 3, 4, 5 for me, or maybe 2, 3, 4, 5, something like that. Those are the hitters that I actually like in this lineup. On the Seattle side, Julio, 4,900, 3,500, cheap for Julio. 13 home runs, 22 stolen bases, 103 WRC plus. Getting himself together a little bit. Very, very slow start, very spotty performance, but the counting stats are there. The run creation's there. Kelnick, still stuck on 11 home runs, but the run creation's been there. He's up to 12 stolen bases. So he's contributing. He's just not hitting a lot of home runs after his great start. 3,600, 3,000, very cheap for him as well. Eugenio Suarez has also pulled himself together. 14 homers on the season, up to a 105 WRC plus. The numbers are normalizing for him. Early in the season, he wasn't hitting for any power at all, but had a weirdly high batting average for him. Now the batting average is coming down. The power is coming back. Cal Raleigh, Teoscar Hernandez, very playable power bats. Ty France, good hit tool, best hit tool on the team, lowest strikeout rate on the team. Mike Ford, odd power output, quad A type player. Jose Caballero, decent little bolt-on piece at the bottom of the lineup. Gets on base, has some speed. He's a playable part as a wraparound play. If you want to skip JP Crawford, go to the cheaper Caballero. You're sacrificing a plate appearance to do it, but it's worthwhile to save that salary difference. More so on DK, where you're going 31 to 22. On FanDuel, it's only a $200 difference, but at least you get Caballero at 3 positions. Did we make it? I think we did. It's 11:36. Got to get lineups built. This slate starts soon. Let's take a quick look at the pitcher board. No surprises. Strider up top with a bullet. Totally enthusiastic about the Strider spot. If Arizona gets him, they get him, but I'm not skipping Spencer Strider just because the Diamondbacks are on the other side. Same story with Blake Snell. Major strikeout asset, major weapon on the mound. He's got his flaws. He's way more flawed than Strider is, way more unreliable than Strider is. He's going to put a bunch of Blue Jays on via the walk, and then you're going to have to deal with those situations. But he's got more than enough talent to pitch his way out of it, get a bunch of strikeouts. $9,000 is a very cheap price for Blake Snell on the DK slate. Abbott, I don't fully trust. Don't love the spot in the ballpark, but obviously projects well. We talked about the home run problems. We talked about the walk issues. We talked about the xFIP being a lot higher than the ERA and the clunky couple of starts he's had the last 2 times out. But he is a very talented kid going up against the Giants, a starless team, but a team that knows how to hit home runs against the lefty, get on base against the lefty, and create runs. Kirby and Lopez, we just finished. I love both of those starters in their spots. Either one of them could get dinged by the opposing offense, but both of them are very talented guys having good seasons in good spots. Gallen against the Braves is a potential major inflection point for this slate. If Gallen goes out and lights up the Braves today, has a dominant Zach Gallen type of a start, that could be slate changing. 29, there's no real difference between this projection and these projections. It's just directional for baseball. So it does have like strikeout totals baked into it, but that's a 1 strikeout difference essentially. So I'm as enthusiastic about Zach Gallen as anybody on this slate. I just don't like targeting the Braves. I don't like targeting the Braves when they're showing power. I don't like targeting the Braves just in general. They're so good. But Gallen could go out and break the slate today with a good start. So I will have him. I'm less enthusiastic about him than Kirby, Lopez, Snell, and Strider. But I will have him. Probably like him a little better than Andrew Abbott, despite the match. Well, nah. Put them on the same tier. Quintana and Lorenzen, playable for value with these projections. Burns, highly playable, doesn't project great because of the struggles. Alex Cobb, highly playable, doesn't project great because he's Alex Cobb. And then Walker, I think, is playable from the bottom. Even Kopech, if you want to take shots at the Mets. I just talked about how I like that Mets stack. There's really only one guy on this board that I consider essentially unplayable, and that's Zach Greinke. And he's got the ability to pitch a clean game against the Tigers. With his microscopic walk rate, there's nothing that would stop Zach Greinke from going out and having a good game here. So he's not even unplayable. That's the wrong word. There's one pitcher I don't like, and that's Zach Greinke. Chris Bassett at the bottom of the board for $9,000 on the FanDuel slate. I probably just won't get there given the price, but on DK he's playable. Good depth of start. Decent enough matchup against San Diego. So this is a really highly playable pitching board. You can go in really any direction. If you need a value guy, go to one of the value guys. If you've got plenty of salary to spend, just stay with the aces. Mix and match, put guys together, and leave some salary on the board as a differentiating strategy. Just do like a George Kirby at 83 and Corbin Burns at 85. Right? Save some money there. And then leave a little bit of that money that you saved by going to those 2 starters on the table while still unlocking something, right? Get to an expensive team and then make a decision that's different than everybody else that'll put that combination together. And an easy way to do that is like, all right, I used discounted pitchers, but I still left $300 on the table. You don't necessarily need to max out your salary. Certainly not in baseball. That's just not a thing. All right, with that in mind, I think that's the end of the show. Let's see if anything's going on in the chat. A lot of mix and match possible for sure, says Stephen Leibowitz. Gallo this season, 17 homers, 13 singles. Yep. It's crazy output. Kevin O, thanks. Take Joker for a walk or let him walk you. Yeah, he's going to take me for a drag later on. That's how these kind of days go. It's also just warm today. It's what is it? 83 out, but it feels warmer in here for whatever reason today. So I'm just like uncomfortable. Anyway, I'm going to punch out today, or right now. Good luck today. Go get them. Somebody go win something. I'll be hanging around in Discord for the next little bit while I build lineups, but I'm going to be focused on that. But drop any questions, anything like that into the Discord. Hit the like button. Subscribe if you haven't. And good luck. 12:20 start. Enjoy.